Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are completely debunking a massive myth. We're throwing out the idea that motivation is just some catchy hang-in-there poster on the break room wall, or, a forced office pizza party. Instead, we're diving into the hard research to reveal how motivation is actually a highly measurable system design variable. It's an architectural framework that directly impacts a company's bottom line. Okay, let's dive right into this. If you've spent literally any time in management, you have definitely heard this incredibly flawed, old-school question, how do we get employees to work harder? Calling it out is step one, because honestly, this question completely assumes motivation is just a volume knob. Like you can just turn it up with a right pep talk and boom, everyone's suddenly working 60 hours a week with a smile. It just doesn't work that way. We really have to contrast that bad question with the actual strategic question we should be asking, and that is, what makes people choose, sustain, and direct their effort toward organizational goals? Because if we don't understand the complex why and how of human effort, any strategy we try to build is going to fall flat. So, to get us there, here is our quick roadmap. We'll start with the true nature of motivation, look at the limits of human needs, explore the actual mathematics of effort, uncover the power of intrinsic drive, break down reward system design, and finally tie it all into performance and retention. Let's go. Section 1. The true nature of motivation. Moving beyond motivation as just a feeling. The academic definition of motivation isn't a slogan, it actually rests on three absolute pillars. First is intensity, just the sheer level of effort someone is putting in. Second is direction, how well that effort aligns with your strategic goals. And third is persistence, sustaining that effort when things get incredibly difficult. I mean, think about it. High intensity is totally useless if the direction is wrong, right? It's like running really fast but on the wrong track. Companies like Amazon know this. They use crystal clear goals and high-speed execution to anchor exactly this kind of directed, persistent effort. Section 2. The limits of needs. Moving past Maslow and Herzberg. Now, what's really interesting here is Friedrich Herzberg's two-factor theory. It reveals a fascinating split. You have your hygiene factors, things like your salary and basic working conditions. These basically just prevent people from quitting. They remove the dissatisfaction. But let's be real, no one is working until midnight just because the office has free coffee and a nice ping pong table. The true motivators are achievement, autonomy, and the work itself. Those are what actually drive excellence. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that removing dissatisfaction by raising salaries does not magically equal creating high performance. You can have a very well-paid employee who still does the absolute bare minimum. Section 3. The formula for effort. The mathematics of human behavior. Okay, I love this part. Consider Victor Vroom's expectancy formula. It is a literal mathematical equation. Motivation equals expectancy multiplied by instrumentality multiplied by valence. Let's break that down. Expectancy is the belief that my effort will actually yield a result. Instrumentality is the belief that the result will definitely be rewarded by the company. And valence? That's how much the employee actually cares about that specific reward. Because these are multiplied together, if any single one of these variables is a zero, the entire motivation equation equals zero. The whole thing just collapses. But wait, it's not just some internal calculation playing out in someone's head. It's highly social. Welcome to equity theory. Humans care deeply, like viscerally, about relative fairness. We are constantly comparing our outcomes and inputs against everybody else. If an employee perceives injustice in the system, say they see a coworker doing way less work but getting the exact same bonus, even if they are paid incredibly well, they will actively lower their effort. Or worse, they'll just quit. When it comes to fairness, perception is reality. Section 4. Intrinsic motivation, self-determination theory. So self-determination theory points out something super counterintuitive. Extrinsic rewards, like money, are totally necessary, right? But if they're overused, they can actually destroy a person's internal drive. True intrinsic motivation relies on three core psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And we see this play out in massive corporations all the time. Google provides autonomy for innovation. Toyota builds competence through their rigorous continuous improvement processes, and Microsoft, they leverage an incredible culture of learning and relatedness under Satya Nadella. And this brilliantly illustrates a really common misunderstanding. Autonomy is not just letting everyone run wild and do whatever they want. Actually, scratch that. It's the opposite. Effective autonomy equals freedom within strategic boundaries plus strict accountability. It's basically giving people a sandbox and the rules of the game and then letting them figure out the absolute best way to build the castle. Section 5. Reward System Design. incentive systems, and compensation. There is a really delicate balance to strike here. Short-term incentives are great. They drive fast revenue and hit quarterly profit goals. But long-term incentives, things like shares, stock options, and ESOPs, those drive retention and sustainable, lasting value. Executives absolutely must balance these two. Think about it. If your system is totally weighted toward the short term, your people will ruthlessly sacrifice the future of the company just to hit today's targets. Pay for performance is a powerful tool, for sure, but it can cause incredibly cutthroat internal competition if you aren't careful. Which brings us to perhaps the single most powerful rule in KPI design. What gets measured gets managed, what gets rewarded gets repeated. I want you to really let that sink in. If you measure the wrong thing, you will directly create the wrong behavior, period. If a salesperson is only rewarded for volume, they will happily sacrifice customer service quality just to hit their quota. And the crazy part? The system didn't fail. It did exactly what you designed it to do. We can see a really practical application of this in the VIETDAK business case from our sources. They structured a 3-tier system. Tier 1 is entirely foundational, fair pay and clear roles. Tier 2 builds on top of that with KPIs and performance reviews. And finally, Tier 3 locks it all in with growth paths and talent retention. The secret here? You cannot jump to Tier 3 without building Tier 1. You absolutely have to establish foundational fairness before you can ever expect high-level accountability and loyalty. Section 6. Performance and Retention. The Cascade Effect. This brings us to an overarching PhD research model that elegantly ties all these frameworks together into one cohesive corporate strategy. It is essentially a cascade, like dominoes. Step 1 is well-designed motivation. That structured motivation feeds directly into Step 2, which is deep employee engagement. That engagement is the engine that produces Step 3, extremely high performance. And ultimately, that sustained performance and satisfaction leads directly to Step 4, top-tier talent retention. It's not random. It is a predictable mathematical sequence. So what does this all mean for us? It leaves us with this pretty provocative final thought to consider. What behavior is your system actually encouraging? Because as we've seen today, motivation isn't magic, it is architecture. If your people aren't performing, before you point fingers and blame their work ethic, you really need to step back and deeply consider the true impact of the incentive systems you've built around them. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope it helps you look at your organization's performance in a totally new light. Catch you next time.